Live, Laugh, Larceny discusses true petty crimes that may be disturbing to some.
Or could be easy listening to all you psychopaths out there.
All stories are based on actual events, but details may vary.
Listener discretion is not advised.
Live,
Laugh.
Larceny. Welcome to Live, Laugh, Larceny. Receiving a message in a bottle that just says, eat shit. This is Trevin.
And I'm Amanda. You know, honestly, if I received a message in a bottle, okay, let's just say I'm on a beautiful beach and the bottle just comes gently up upon shore and it says, eat shit. Honestly, I'd love it.
That would be my favorite message in a bottle.
I would definitely post it online. So, Trevin.
Yes.
What is your dreadful dilemma?
Oh boy. I have a dreadful dilemma, and it has to do with treating myself. So you and I, physically in the present of recording this episode, I am one day away from my first body image and eating disorder appointment.
I can't wait.
I can't wait either. I'm ready to get this thing tackled. But since I've been waiting, it's been 2 or 3 weeks since I set up the appointment. I've been working on things on my own, opening my mind to different things, questioning, why do I do the things that I do? What triggers this issue? And it's helping me have a little more awareness of myself, what my triggers are and stuff. So I've been trying to do this thing where I treat myself more.
Okay.
We all need self-love.
Absolutely.
That's a fun word. We all like to do that. And I've been working on my self-love as well. So I had my first chance to do like a real self-love thing here. Emily and I had bought new contact solution a couple weekends ago when we went grocery shopping. We both wear contacts.
Okay.
We like to buy the big thing with the 2 double things. We opened it up, and inside of it was a free bonus contact case. And I held it up and said, hey, Emily, look. This is kind of a cool contact case. Like, this is fun. And what it was just your traditional left side, right side contact case.
Okay.
Except the L and the R was made out of these big, like, braille bumps. You could kind of feel the shape of the L and the R.
Nice.
And, that's kind of cool. Now, I've been wearing contacts since the day the movie Freddy vs. Jason came out.
Whoa!
I was a very young middle school boy. My dad told me that if I go out and get contacts, because I kept breaking glasses on the basketball court, I'm a little b-baller, that we could go see this movie that I wouldn't stop talking about, Freddy vs. Jason. So we ended up spending a long time in Walmart's optometrist department.
Lovely.
Style. It took so long getting all this stuff right, and I don't know. It was just a very long process. I don't think it was supposed to have taken as long as it did. I got contacts. My point is, I've had the same contact case since that day.
No way.
Serious. I've held on to this same contact case since I was, and I can't remember what year this movie came out, probably like
2003.
So I was probably like 10 years old.
Oh my God.
I've held on to it. It has an L and an R, and they're kind of indented. And so it gathers oil, and it gets dirty because it's indented. Why don't I just get a new one? You know what I mean? But my thing is, with my weird eating disorder thing, is I've always kind of taught myself, mentally, I'm always in kind of a state of, I'm afraid things are going to run out. What if I don't have food tomorrow? So I eat more. What if this? I think I talked about this once a long time ago. During the pandemic, when Emily and I lived in our old place, I was reusing paper plates.
Right.
Even though I could tell myself, Trevin, look, up in that cabinet,
there are others, baby.
You've got a barely used pack of 40 right there. You're not going to run through it. But I would still just be like, yeah, but why use it? And I still struggle with this, whatever this even means. I'm an American. I live the life of abundance.
Yeah.
But why do I feel like I don't? You know what I mean? It's like I feel like I don't have food when I always have food. So because of this, I know Emily and I have a gigantic container of free contact cases. And I held up this weird little braille one and I said, that'd be cool if it was mine. It's literally mine. So I threw it in with the other ones and I just went on. The next day, I thought, this is a great opportunity to try this thing I've been reading about. Self-love.
Treating myself. So what? You put your contacts in one of these freebie contact cases?
So I got the freebie one with the Braille lettering that I loved. And I swapped my contacts in to the new one. And I thought, oh, look, I kind of have the cool one now. But as I was like, hey, babe, look, I'm self-loving. I said, I've got a brand new contact case. That one I said I liked last week. And she said, okay, we'll go throw away the old ones. And I was like, oh, I can't do that.
How are you not a hoarder?
I don't know.
That sounds like hoarder behavior, but your house is not a hoarder's house at all.
I'll be honest. Sometimes I'll have the irrational thought when I go to throw my contacts out. I'll be like, what if I could somehow gather all the images I ever saw with this pair of contacts? I better not throw it away.
Oh my God.
I always do.
So what you're telling me is Emily is keeping you from becoming
she might be helping.
A hoarder.
So she said, okay, throw your old one away. But the funny thing is my dramatic ass. After all this, I'm like, I'm not going to do it. I don't want to throw it away. And then out of nowhere, I was like, you know what? I'll show her. I was like, not only will I throw it away, I'll fucking break it before I throw it away.
Oh, whoa.
And Emily's like, what are you doing? And I said, if I'm going out on my own terms. So I took this contact case and I'm sitting here trying to break it in half, which I couldn't.
It's probably sturdy.
It's sturdy, which then I looked at Emily, I'm like, oh my God, it didn't break. It's a sign maybe I shouldn't throw it away. Yeah, maybe it does deserve my love. And then she said, I don't know if we should get married because I don't think I can be with a guy who can't throw away trash. And so that kind of cut deep and then I threw it away.
Oh, thank God above. Wow. I really didn't know where you're going with this because we started with the whole self-love thing and then we were talking about contact solution. And I was thinking maybe, just maybe, you bought a brand new, like, blinged out one or something. But baby steps, and I will accept that for what you were giving.
Yeah, so the dilemma is that I tried self-love.
Maybe we can try it again one day with something other than your contacts and just give it a whirl. Wow. Well, that is dreadful, Trevin. I also have a dreadful dilemma. We actually talked about it earlier this very day.
What didn't we talk about today?
I was going to say, I've been with you like most of the day, but we haven't discussed it on our show. And it's a certain word that I say incorrectly.
Oh, when you said a certain word, I was going for pussy. Because we had that whole conversation about you not liking that word.
I don't. I really don't. But no, there was a listener. I'm not even mad about it. You know, sometimes we're like, we got a horrible review. I think she gave us a 5-star review.
Oh, this one, yeah.
And it was just kind of thrown in there.
They're like, we love you, but.
We love you, but like, fix yourself.
Yeah.
I say the word especially instead of especially.
Mm-hmm.
I say especially instead of especially.
Which
wow.
I catch other shows doing it now, and I'm like, I wonder if they catch shit for it.
So I was wondering to myself, why is it that you are saying this word incorrectly? And then it dawned on me.
Excited?
No, I spell it incorrectly.
You actually spell it incorrectly? Because that review that made fun of you actually spelt it incorrectly too, to make fun of you.
Well, I don't spell it with an X or anything, but I replace the S and the C when I spell it. And I always have to get the spell check thing always corrects it for me. Mm-hmm. But I noticed it when I was spelling it out the other day, and I was like, I spell it ECSPECIALLY.
Damn, now people are going to say you can't spell.
I know. I know. They're going to be like, never mind. I thought it was just the way you spoke, but since you're a big old dummy, 1 star.
Yeah, you pretty much just like sat up in front of a dunk tank and just like asked people to throw balls at you.
I just roasted myself.
Yeah.
But that's okay. You know what, though? I would like to throw it out there that I think everyone has at least one simple word that they struggle to spell. For example, another one, tomorrow. I'm like, is it multiple M's? Is it multiple R's? And that one always kind of throws me off. But yeah, I spell it especially. C first. So I'm learning. I'm working through this. And I just appreciate everyone's love and patience during this time.
I will tell you one thing to make you feel a little better.
Okay.
When we go and do hashtags for some of our posts on Instagram and I think on also TikTok, Hashtag podcast recommendations. Just to show you that somebody else in this world has made a mistake. Recommendations.
Oh, no.
There is a very popular hashtag called podcast recommendations with 2 C's and 1 M. And I could be wrong, but it might have more hits than podcast recommendations spelled correctly.
I kind of hope that's true.
I think I'm right, but even if not, the one with 2 C's is very popular too, because one person had to have made the typo, other people made it, but before catching themselves, I said, well, this thing has like millions of views, so it probably is the right one.
Right.
And we don't know how to spell recommendation.
God dang. Well, tell us, please, if anyone out there also spells a word incorrectly, because I gotta know. I gotta know that I'm not alone.
I've got a word and I can't think of it off the top of my head, but if it hits me later, I'll bring it back.
Yes, please do.
Because Emily calls me out on it and I can't think of what it is.
Dang. But long story short, I am especially sorry for my mispronunciation. I'm working on it.
Girl, it was silky smooth the way you said it there.
There we go.
I especially like that.
So this week we are going to be doing some killer facts.
Hello?
We've traced the facts. They're coming from inside the house.
Killer facts.
And it's my week. Bum, bum. So I have got a killer fact for you.
Yeah. They're like, okay, shut up.
Yeah.
And just to get everyone a little more excited, we were both just talking about how into both of our killer facts we are this week. Like, really excited.
Yes.
So give it to us, Trevin.
So I'm going to talk to you all about the cadaver synod.
Oh, okay.
It was when a dead pope was put on trial.
What?
I'm coming to you from howstuffworks.com. I'm working between them and Atlas Obscura.
Both great sites. Oh my God.
Yeah. My thing here is it's very kind of dense as far as the politics of it all. And I don't know much about 897 CE Italy.
I mean,
we all could use a brush up. Am I right?
You're right.
So I don't know much about that. There's a little bit of twisty shit, kind of Game of Thronesy politics sort of shit that happens between these popes. So it's one of those things where it's like I need somebody to explain it to me like I'm 10. So I'm going to try to do that for you guys. So Pope Formosus in 897 CE, basically he was trying to gain extra special pope power. Because basically you could be a pope of an area, but only one area. And also cool thing about back then is you couldn't take money as election bribery there. They outlawed it, which what a lovely idea.
Oh, hey, would you look at that?
Wouldn't that be cool to not be bought? So he was the Pope of Italy, and then he wanted to stretch his reach and kind of go other places. So after Charlemagne had died, they split his empire into 3 different areas, and they gave it to all of his grandsons. There was Louis the German, Charles the Bald, and Lothair, which he sounds like the villain. Was
the second one actually bald?
He better have been. Once they were split like that, it kind of severed where like the popes could reign too. Okay. So they couldn't just be one pope for all 3 because now they were called 3 places. So when this had happened, Pope Formosus was trying to play the game and pope over more places than one. It's kind of like when Kanye said, no one man should have all that power. I think Formosus didn't hear that song.
He really should have listened to Kanye West's music back then.
Yes. And so he was trying to lead over like Bulgaria while also doing Germany, trying to get some power in Italy, and just kind of playing the game in, like I said, kind of a Game of Thronesy way. He's sort of going behind people's backs and doing the political shitty kind of thing. And that's illegal. He had held power in the Germany area and the other area. Then he dies. After he had died, 2 popes later, another guy is Stephen VI was pope, and Stephen was determined to revisit all the crimes of what Formosus did. He couldn't just do a smear campaign where he's just like, hey, Formosus, the guy before me, sucked. Don't like that guy.
Did everyone love him or something? Is that why?
He was a so-so guy. I mean, I think it was like he had a good legacy because he was a pope.
Yeah.
But he was like, I don't think he was poping right. You know, poping ain't easy. So he said, I think Formosa kind of sucks. I'm going to pull that bastard out of the ground. I'm going to take his dead body out and I'm going to put him on trial.
Damn.
Because he knew that Formosa poped in Germany and he poped in Italy.
A little poper.
And he's not supposed to pope that many places.
A little party poper.
There's no question. You're not supposed to do that. He pulled up Formosa's body. He dressed him in the robes and put him up on a throne and held trial. And that's why it was called the Cadaver Synod, because a synod is a pope meeting.
Okay.
It's either they work through like discipline or they just talk about like, what's the future of worship? And they work out things. And then cadaver just obviously means it's a dead body.
Wow. So to me, don't know these people personally, but I feel like maybe he was a little jelly or maybe a little insecure, because that seems like he went a very great length to do this. And yeah, there's got to be something deeper like that.
Yeah, he also didn't make it very fair. So obviously, a dead body's never going to come to their own defense.
Totally.
But they had a deacon of the church just step up and speak in place of the dead guy. It says that Stephen VI was said to have screamed at the corpse, and they chose a soft-spoken deacon that really didn't stand up for himself. So it said the weak deacon's defense did little to plead Formosa's case. The drama of the macabre scene was increased when an earthquake shook the San Giovanni Laterano Basilica. And that was another weird thing, too. This guy's sitting here, a dead body on the stand. He's like, "You're a liar, sir." And the dead body is just rotting. And as this all is happening, a earthquake just shakes the whole building.
That's gotta be him. Don't you think? Like his spirit being like, fuck off.
If you're one of those people that believe in that kind of a thing.
I am. You aren't.
It is like, one of those
it's
things.
An earthquake.
It's one of those things where it is creepy enough. It's like, whoa, maybe we shouldn't be telling off a dead body.
I mean, that's pretty damn disrespectful.
Yeah, but because Stephen VI set this whole thing up, by the end of it, Formosa was guilty.
Oh my God.
He was stripped of his robes. His dead body was stripped of the robes, and then they cut off the same 3 fingers he used for blessing people. They just chopped them off.
What?
By doing this, they also annulled anything that he did before that, which I guess that means like any power that he was to give somebody below him didn't count anymore. And I don't know about this for sure, but I would think maybe if you baptize somebody, does that count anymore? I don't know.
Like what?
So they said that all of the orders that he had done were declared invalid. They buried him a second time in a cemetery for strangers, just in a random church place, because they had said he was no longer Pope material. But then Stephen VI was like, I don't like that. So they dug his body back up again, and they threw it in the Tiber River.
What?
This guy has a grudge so bad that he digs up the body after he'd just like, go with strangers. Actually, you know what? Never mind. Come back out. Go with the fishes. This dude has such a grudge over a guy that's dead, which, come on. Depending on how the legend goes, either a fisherman or a monk had found his body and they held on to it. And he was later reburied a third time after all this had happened. They were able to clear his name again.
Okay.
Because after a while, they're like, Stephen's kind of a dick.
I think so.
It says the people of Rome were disgusted by the trial, and a few months later, there was a riot. Stephen VI was imprisoned and strangled to death in jail. His maneuver was clearly not appreciative, so what he was hoping to gain from the trial never actually happened. After he was put in prison, strangled to death, then the people were like, hey, I still have the body of Formosa, and they said, let's put him back where he belongs.
So what did they do with Stephen the Sixth? What'd they do with his body?
No,
that ain't right. That ain't right.
Well, I mean, he went to jail, so I'm going to assume he probably got a stranger's burial as well.
Oh my God.
But that just kind of shows you that a petty grudge sometimes, it may be funny to retaliate once. And I'm here to say that a funny retaliation is cool.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually you probably should just stop. Eventually you play yourself. You know what I mean?
I mean, this was more than retaliation. This was small dick energy. Like when you are arguing against someone, I guess you could say, that is unable to defend themselves in every sense of the word, that's small dick energy.
Like nobody's going to respect you when they see you screaming at a dead body.
What a weirdo.
That is so odd.
That is bizarre. Wow. I had never heard of that before. So I also have a killer fact for you today. It is something that came to me just from real life experiences happening. It's nothing that I just looked up. It's something that I saw, and I was like, I need to learn more about this.
Oh, I like that.
Yes. So that was really cool. So on Memorial Day weekend, we went to Grand Lake. Have you ever been there?
No, I don't think
It's
so.
in Oklahoma. It's about a 3-hour drive from here. So we were on our way out there. We were driving. Jordan, my husband's driving in the front seat, and he sees this water tower, and it says Pitcher. So Picher is how the name of the town is spelled, I think. And he was like, hey, isn't that where your grandpa was born? Because I was always told my grandpa was born in Pitcher, Oklahoma. I actually think it was a town right next to it, but you get the point.
Yeah, they just kind of round up sort of thing.
Yeah, and so I was like, oh my God, yes, he was. I'm looking out the window trying to get a glimpse of this hometown of my grandfather, and I'm looking around, and I had forgotten, because I believe my dad had told me this, that it was a ghost town now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool.
But I had forgotten that. And so I'm looking, trying to gain some insight into his childhood, his hometown, and I'm looking, and it's just road after road, and it's just overgrown with greenery and plants, no houses at all. And not only is it just all these roads, I mean, you can see where the blocks of this town existed, and there's just nothing but a road and plants overgrowing it. But on the other side, there are these gigantic piles, and I didn't know what they were, like gravel or what it was exactly, but just piles and piles of this shit. And then it's just like ghost town. And so I was intrigued, and I wanted to know more. So wow, did I find out some crazy shit about this town. So I got most of my information about Pitcher on Wikipedia, so shout out.
If you've ever heard of it, hope you give it a go.
Yeah, it's this brand new thing. You might want to give it a shot. Pitcher, Oklahoma was once a national center for lead and zinc mining, lasting for over 100 years. But now it remains a ghost town due to evacuations from the EPA. So this is crazy. Decades of unrestricted subsurface excavation of these materials led to irreparable damage. Town buildings and homes were at risk for caving in, the groundwater became contaminated, and the children were getting sick from playing on the large piles of toxic metal contaminated mine tailings.
Whoa.
And I guess it's also known as chat. So if you've heard of chat.
I think I've heard of that.
Yeah, that's what these piles are called. They're just heaped throughout the area. And I guess it's been there for hundreds of years when they've been doing their mining, I guess.
They just haven't moved it out yet? Or I guess they're still mining it?
I don't know. I don't know if they're just sitting there or what is happening. But in a 1999 study, it showed that 34% of the town's children had lead poisoning.
Oh, wow.
In 2006, Army Corps of Engineers study showed 86% of Pitcher's buildings, including the town's school, were badly undermined and subject to collapse at any time.
Oh.
So
like structural issues.
Yes. So like the mining, not only did it obviously get all this poisonous stuff that's now in piles that children are playing on, and it's also affecting their water. But now there's sinkholes because of all the mining underneath the earth. So it's just a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I guess you can't really chance that. It's one thing where you're like, well, just get the shit out of there and we won't be as bad. But yeah, that's messed up.
It keeps going, kind of like your fact.
But wait, there's more.
There's much more. In May of 2008, 150 more homes were demolished by an F4 tornado that barreled through the area. By this time, obviously, more and more people are leaving, and then this just massive tornado comes through it as well. It's like, what else do we need in this
insult
town?
to injury, really.
Jesus. So finally, on September 1st of 2009, the state of Oklahoma officially disincorporated the city of Pitcher, which ceased official operations on that day. Pitcher is among a small number of locations in the world, such as Gilman, Colorado, Centralia, Pennsylvania, and Wittenoom, Western Australia, to be evacuated and declared uninhabitable due to environmental and health damage caused by area mines.
That's a very short list.
Very short.
What are the chances?
I know. And I guess it is kind of a little bit specific. I mean, environmental and health damage caused by mines, but with all the mining in the world.
Yeah.
It's just odd that the list is that damn small. I agree.
Yeah. Wow, that's actually really cool. It's not just like, oh, people stopped living here, duh. Mm-hmm. No, there's a story here.
Yeah, I know. I didn't see that coming at all. Like I said, when I was looking through the town, I had briefly remembered, oh, my dad mentioned, I think that no one really lives there anymore, but I didn't know. Mm-hmm. So it was really, really cool to see something in the wild and be like, what the hell is the story?
Yeah.
And it was really fascinating. And all the other little towns around that town also shut down too. I think there were like 2 others, but they were so small that I think Pitcher was like the main one. Mm-hmm. But yeah, really weird.
You almost feel like they make little preteen books about you for looking something up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like I just uncovered the secret of Pitcher, Oklahoma. You didn't have a fun BuzzFeed article saying, here's a funny place. You're like, I figured this out on my own.
I know. And that sounds so silly, but I mean, for the majority of our facts, I mean, yeah, it might be something I'm vaguely interested in that I kind of look up or whatever. But yeah, it was probably the first time where I saw something and was like, what? I'm going to do some digging.
Yeah, I love that.
It was really cool. And creepy. It was very creepy vibes.
Yeah, ghost towns are kind of creepy, but I would love to do some urban exploring on some. That would be cool.
For sure. Jordan even said, he's like, oh, if I was ever on the run, this is where I'd go. And I'm like, what? So you can like die from toxic whatever chat is floating around?
Yeah, that would be such a like unlucky thing. Chose here to hide out and poison myself.
So before we jump into stories, I know what you're really all here for. These ads.
Listen up. And we are back. And it is my week to go first. And I will say that I wasn't doing this on purpose. The cadaverous synod was very interesting to me, but it just so happens that the story I wrote this week will also connect with it.
Oh, weird.
I'm going to tell a story about some people who dug up a body. No, I'm not really going to do that. But I am going to tell a story about a grudge, which makes me think a lot about Stephen the Sixth's grudge with this dead body that he felt he needed to teach a lesson.
Yeah.
So here's a petty crime story from the news about a grudge, and let's see which side of the conflict we're on. And here we go. The great Anne Lamott once wrote, "Not forgiving is like drinking rat poison and then waiting for the rat to die." Genius. Such good writing. I love having it put that way. Keeping a grudge towards another person is only experienced between you and yourself. No matter how much energy you waste hating that person, no one is actually affected by your feelings other than yourself. Just like the analogy of having someone drinking poison. You're over here, throwing darts into photographs of your enemy, while staying up every night screaming in anger.
I'm so angry!
And that rat that you were wishing to poison, well, he's chilling in his bachelor pad, smoking imported cigars, texting celebrities,
Zendaya, come over now.
and wiping his ass with $20 bills.
Feels so good.
So while your partner has left you, and your job fired you, due to your need to continue these late-night dart-throwing parties, the person you want to hurt the most is living life none the wiser, in a state of exuberant bliss. When sitting down to write this story, I thought a little more about this quote. I've always understood it, but this time, I feel like my viewpoint grabbed onto a different side of this. Don't you just love that? Like when you watch an old favorite show, and you feel more in tune with a character you used to not like as much, and your old favorite now seems like an asshole? Gah, I love witnessing that growth. Anyway, all of the times I heard the quote before, my mind focused more on the poisoning oneself aspect. Me as an angsty boy in his early 20s would think, oh yeah, forgive, because hating someone poisons your soul. Hating is so bad, blah 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 hippies. I never really focused on the second part of the quote. As a seasoned, petty crime novelist in his early to mid-30s, who has made some mistakes and learned along the way, I focus more on the second half of that quote, waiting on the rat to die. I grew up during the boom of rap metal. No quote about how hate is bad for the soul is going to land with me. But one thing that will land is the fact that my actions don't harm the person who upset me. I'm an actionable thinker. If I'm going to put effort into something, I want it to help with a situation in some way. Realizing that nursing that kind of a grudge doesn't actually make my enemy feel the same hurt I'm feeling is the best way to help me realize that it's a waste to continue. Now that we've taken a refresher course on the healthy ways to deal with a grudge, let's tell a story about someone else's grudge, shall we? On a cool spring evening in Lakeview, New York, chaos spread in the form of a coffee cup. No one, except maybe one man, could have known that this single coffee cup would kickstart a war spanning multiple years. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The mostly empty coffee cup landed softly in the grass, but I can assure you, although it landed softly, the emotional impact it left was that of an atomic bomb. And there the cup sat, until the sleepy little sun came up the following morning. At precisely 7:30, the front door of the Pattins' home swung open, as Ed came out to leave for work.
What in good heavens?
Ed said to himself as he stepped off of his sidewalk and onto his grass. Picking up the littered cup, Ed turned around and went back inside his home.
Hey, honey!
Ed called out for his wife, Cheryl. As she entered the room, Ed continued on.
Look what I found in the yard,
he said while holding up a McDonald's to-go cup.
McDonald's? Man, I remember when you and I used to go to McDonald's and get coffees. We would hop into my dad's old beat-up Honda, throw on an 8-track and cruise down for 20-cent black coffee. Gee, those sure were swell times,
Cheryl responded. Ed took one long look at the coffee cup before sighing.
Oh well, just thinking about the good old days,
he said to himself, as he tossed the coffee cup in the garbage. After the Pattins had each gone to their respective jobs and their various social obligations for the evening,
Bingo!
The older couple was ready to call it a night. They shared a kiss before Ed rolled over to turn off the lamp. But just as the two were softly drifting off to sleep, a giant shadow of negative feelings surrounded the home. No source of light did shine, besides a single set of headlights creeping down the couple's road. The suspicious vehicle made a quick pit stop at the Pattins' home, throwing a coffee cup into the yard and continuing back on its way. The next morning, Ed exited the home at 7:30 on the dot to see another McDonald's cup in his yard.
Well, I'll be,
Ed said to himself, picking up the cup and returning back into his house.
Look, honey,
Ed yelled.
2 days in a row with the McDonald's cup. I think it's a sign that you and I go down to Mickey Big D's and get ourselves some black coffee. You know, for old time's sake.
Cheryl stared at her husband, trying to process the suggestion just presented to her.
No, thank you, dear, she cheerily responded. We both know how McDonald's coffee gives you gas. Yes, dear,
Ed said softly to himself, as he threw that McDonald's cup in the trash as well. The following morning, Ed exited his home again to see a Scooter's cup in his yard. He ran towards the cup and inspected it.
Why would someone pay almost double the price of McDonald's for lower quality?
Ed shouted to the heavens. For the next few weeks, every morning the Pattins checked their yard, there would be another used coffee cup just waiting for them. McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts, hipster coffee shop up the street that's name is just an asterisk, or Starbucks on the weekends. No matter the brand, the litterer was consuming coffee that day and dumping it right in Cheryl and Ed's yard. At first, they took it as a coincidence. Maybe someone lost a coffee cup and the wind blew it into our yard, Cheryl would optimistically say. Until one particularly threatening cup showed up, covered in cigarette burn holes and butts. Like cigarette butts. Come on, people. The two turned, catching this serial litterer into their full-time obsession. They wanted to bring this criminal to justice, figure out why they were targets, and also ask why they didn't seem to frequent any one specific coffee cellar. First, Ed tried staying up late enough to catch when the vehicle would drop the cups off. But it was no use. Every time he tried to compose a stakeout, he would just wake up the next morning on the porch swing with a new cup in his yard.
Life is my nightmare.
Edward began recording each instance on index cards and keeping the cups for evidence. Time continued to move on. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. And yes, months even turned into years. The petty litterer proved to be just as slippery as they were persistent. Thanks to the purchases of both a video security system and high-powered binoculars, Edward was able to get some identifying information on the villain. It was a minivan. By the point of realizing the type of vehicle, Cheryl and Ed recruited help from their neighborhood. Bob and Martha next door were told to let their guard dog out at night. The neighborhood watch were given real weapons, and local teens were bribed with an insulting prize of $5 for more information on the litterer.
Wow, nobody wants to work these days.
Everyone in the vicinity was made aware of the situation, and this behavior needed to be stopped. There were many different attempts at catching the litterer, from the neighborhood watch trying to grappling hook onto the minivan, to the desperate teens trying to set a trap for that sweet, sweet prize money. Unfortunately, though, each attempt failed, as this litterer had mastered some ancient art of driving that no camera or human eye could identify the license plate.
How is this possible?
But just like a toddler in a good mood, nothing lasts forever. After collecting an embarrassingly large amount of coffee cup trash bags, Cheryl and Ed received a glimmer of hope in the form of a hot tip. After noticing a suspicious minivan driving through the neighborhood at night, Mrs. Winchester's son got up and wrote down its license plate number. When hearing the news, Mrs. Winchester rushed to Cheryl and handed over the information. Finally, with some tangible evidence and more witnesses, the police decided to join in and set the trap. A cop car set off on a side street as neighbors got in place and Cheryl hid in the bush. They all waited in their places until the shine of headlights poked over the hill. Cheryl held her breath as she watched the minivan slightly slow down to toss a coffee cup into her yard. Driving off and turning down the next street, she watched as the flashes of red and blue reflected off the surrounding homes. Just one block from where she stood, her terrorizer of over 3 years sat in their minivan, just waiting to be arrested. Finally, her and Ed's nightmare was over. In April of 2021, Hamburg, New York police arrested the person who had been littering coffee cups in the same yard for 3 years. Nearly every day, elderly homeowners Cheryl and Ed Patton would exit their home to find a new coffee cup in their lawn. The accumulated coffee cups filled 10 large trash bags. The family reached out to neighbors, as well as buying a video surveillance system and high-powered binoculars. Still, it wasn't until 3 years later that a neighbor caught the minivan's license plate number. With the plate number handed over to the cops, the neighborhood and the Pattons worked with the police to help set a trap to catch the litterer. Within the week, the litterer was brought to justice. The man was identified as 76-year-old Larry Pope. According to Buffalo News, Larry Pope was an ex-coworker of Cheryl Patton's. The two had worked together at the Fisher bus service in Hamburg, where they would often get in disputes over union activities, leading Cheryl to refer to him as her nemesis. Cheryl Patton, also 76, told Buffalo News, "I found it very hard to believe that someone I knew would do something like that, especially at his age." Larry Pope was charged with harassment and ticketed with throwing refuse onto a roadway. The following October, Hamburg Town Justice Gerald P. Gorman agreed to drop the charges on Larry Pope if he stayed out of trouble for a probationary period of 6 months and completed a list of conditions. Steps needed to be taken was to write a letter of apology, pay the Pattins $2,776.47 restitution for the surveillance system and binoculars, and complete community service with an organization that cleans neighborhoods. The Pattins were also given a restraining order of 6 months from Pope. By June of 2022, Larry Pope had completed all necessary requirements and officially had his charges dismissed. For his apology letter, he kept it short and sweet. I would like to apologize to Mr. and Mrs. Patton for my compulsive behavior of littering. I meant no harm. I'm very remorseful for any problems that I may have caused you or your family. I have learned a valuable lesson from my poor judgment. Since Pope's arrest, the Pattons have yet to see a coffee cup in their yard again. I don't know about you all, but I absolutely love when we can tell a petty crime story that is full-on petty. What a major commitment. 3 years. And he doesn't even get the satisfaction of seeing them be bothered by it. He just gets to throw the coffee cup and imagine he is throwing a wrench into their lives. So what do you all think? The pettiness isn't the question. But would you? Come on. I'm sure you can at least think of one person who needs a few hundred coffee cups in their yard. Or, maybe some kind of petty prank that gives a little more satisfaction. Of course I'm kidding, because at the beginning of the story, I did a deep dive on that quote about forgiveness. I'm not going to cover a quote about forgiveness and then end my story siding with the petty thing to do. I'm a changing man. If you're currently struggling with a grudge that you feel the need to act on, I implore you to not retaliate in a way that could land you in probation. Instead, try to talk it out. Communication can mend relationships, cause an understanding, and even make you feel better. So, if these feelings come creeping in your head, approach the person who affected you and tell them how their actions made you feel. If they don't apologize after you open up to them, then I would say you're probably safe to graffiti testicles on their house or something.
3 years. For some reason, when you were telling the story, and I assume the whole flashback and memories about going to McDonald's was an added thing? Or did they say that at all?
No, I was just trying to give the husband a character of, I wish we would rekindle our relationship with McDonald's. And she's like, I'm not catching your hints, honey. I just thought that was funny.
What's so funny is that before we figured out who it was, I had this conspiracy in my mind.
That he was doing it himself.
Yeah, because he wanted to rekindle their McDonald's romance days.
And I think I did kind of give him that backstory just to kind of throw people off the scent a little bit. It's kind of fun to have that mystery on like where we're going to go. Because sometimes the things are just so damn bizarre that's like, you couldn't see that coming.
Totally.
We make it seem that way sometimes. But nobody knew that somebody was going to do something that ridiculous,
Were they really all from different coffee shops, like you said?
Okay, so the article said McDonald's.
Okay.
But there were pictures looking inside of the trash bags where you could just see all the cups, and I swear they weren't all McDonald's. So for the purposes of me putting that little joke of just, why does he frequent so many?
Yeah.
What my eyes were telling me in that trash bag, it looked like they were all branded differently.
Whoa.
But for some reason, the articles wanted to pinpoint just McDonald's. So I gave McDonald's the most product placement, but I still do believe it was pretty spread out.
That is really weird. But whatever. I think leaving the coffee cup for 3 years straight is even weirder. Also, thank you for shouting out Bob and Martha.
Oh, yes.
My neighbors. For those of you who don't know, I've talked about my neighbors, Bob and Martha, a couple times. So when you threw their names in as side characters, I was like, oh, yeah. I don't know if Bob still listens, but if you do, hi, Bob.
What up, Bob?
But what I found so crazy also is the punishment for this.
Yes. And that was the weird thing too. Like, I'm sure they probably had to do like receipts and stuff. But isn't that funny to be able to say, I put up a surveillance camera system just because of you. And then the judge being like, well, you should probably pay for that surveillance camera system.
I know.
That's so weird.
Ugh.
And also just perfect karma too of being like, now you also have to do probation helping clean up neighborhoods. That's funny.
I'm actually still a little bit shocked that there was even given a punishment. I mean, littering, you see the signs on the street all the time that's like, there's a fine, there's a fine. I could just see a lot of judges and court systems being like, really? You're in here from coffee cups on your lawn?
So in your opinion, you think they would not do as much about it?
Yeah.
That's funny because I feel the opposite.
Really?
I grew up in the country, but like you said, you see those littering signs all the time. And sometimes those things say, if you get caught littering, you can be charged a maximum of $1,000 per ticket or a minimum of at least $200 or something like that. If you have, and the guy admits to doing it almost daily for 3 years.
Yeah, that's true.
And if you wanted a fingerprint him, I guess. But if you could prove that they kept 10 trash bags of every single coffee cup he did, and they can prove that you littered, let's say, I know he took days off, but let's say 320 times a year for 3 years.
That's true.
Even if you wanted to say, round it up to 1,000 or round it down to 900 even, and say, I'll give you the minimum 200 each time. Like, that should be so much money.
That's true.
Unless because you get the other charges of being a petty shit, that somehow is worth more as far as like on your record. They leverage it. Like, oh, we won't charge you as much, but this is going on your record for being an ass. You know what I mean? I feel like it should have been more money.
And maybe that is true. But I guess because the story and the actual act of it all is so damn petty and so unbelievable almost that I would think that a judge would be like, what are you saying to me? You're saying someone really threw a cup in your yard every day for 3 years?
Yeah, did you feel satisfied after that?
I just think that they would obviously think that the cup thrower, they're so weird that that's unbelievable almost. And then I would almost think that they would be like, this can't be real. I don't know. I just, for me, I'm a little shocked that the court system seemed to take it so seriously. But then again, like you said, they had documentation, they had video, they had actual evidence.
Yeah, let's just put it this way. Man guilty of 900 counts of littering.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it should have came out to being, but instead it was man doing petty thing to ex-coworker for 3 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't break it down to its simplest form, which is littering like 900 times.
Yeah. And you know what? If I wanted to get even more sinister about this whole thing, honestly, if I was her and I was experiencing this repetitive thing that goes on for years, and then you find out that it was somebody that you used to work with that is maliciously littering in your yard for years and years and years, I would almost say that could maybe even be like some sort of weird stalking, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I would also think that would be funny too, because sometimes when these bizarre things happen, your mind goes to like a weird place like that. And you're like, oh, it's probably because I said the wrong thing to my aunt that one time.
Yeah.
And you feel guilty for it. And then
Yeah.
to think that after 3 years, you're like, this has to be personal, right? Self-talk, you're like, yeah, it is. No, it's
Right.
not. You're just being silly. Why would somebody spend that much time on me? And then you find out, oh, I actually did make an enemy that long ago, and they actually still can't get over it.
And I feel like, even though I keep saying repetitively, I keep flip-flopping, this is such a flip-flopping story. I feel a lot of different feelings about this. I keep saying it's so silly, but also, if I'm putting myself in her shoes and I'm realizing this, I feel like it would kind of mess me up a little bit. I think psychologically, it would really mess me up a little.
Like, let's say something bizarre happened next week. Would you be like,
Is he back? Who's watching
Is somebody
me?
else mad at something else I did?
Yeah, just anything. Yeah.
I think that's totally normal to have that feeling.
All over a coffee cup in the yard, but doing it repetitively like that for so long. Ugh.
It sounds like it's sort of her particular job had to go through his particular job, and so the departments butted heads.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it was anything that should have been personal between the two. It just seems like it was, like most jobs, the day shift and the night shift seem to butt heads. Who cares?
Yeah.
76 years old, no less. It makes it even weirder.
Find a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, what a story. That one really got me thinking. So, I also have a story from the news this week. Like I was just telling you, Trevin, I really don't have anything written down as like a preamble. So let's just jump right in. And here we go. The word patience is often associated with other words like peace, love, and kindness. It is even considered to be one of life's most important virtues, if you're someone who actually cares about that sort of thing. But with patience being so important to living a fulfilled life, it's criminal just how difficult it can be to achieve. There are many situations we all face regularly where patience is difficult to muster. Situations like standing in long DMV lines, waiting for water to boil, or hearing someone smacking their gum loudly are all sure to make anyone's self-restraint bubble burst. The case I'll be covering today features a criminal who could have used a little more patience and a lot less pettiness. Danny Konyanchny had never been a patient person. As a child, he shoved other kids out of line to make sure he got to meet Mall Santa first. As a teen, he grew impatient at his girlfriend for not noticing him cheating on her sooner, so he announced his affair over his high school's intercom.
I'm a dirty dog, Tina.
And now, at 60 years old, Danny still had a short fuse, especially for people taking too long examining produce in the grocery store.
Buy the fruit or go to Walmart.
Lacking patience was only one of Danny's flaws. He was also known by his neighbors as the drunk who enjoyed shouting random obscenities while standing in his driveway.
Doo-doo poop shit. Hell yeah.
Because of this, Danny had made a few surrounding enemies in his Lady Lake, Florida community. The biggest rival being his next-door neighbor, Becky. Danny and Becky could not be more different from each other. Becky's yard was made up of manicured grass, blooming flowers, and garden gnomes. While Danny's yard was filled with dandelions and old pizza boxes.
Look at that yard.
Becky enjoyed hosting house parties and walking her dog, while Danny enjoyed throwing back shots and screaming wildly into the outdoor air.
Spank me, Daddy, I'm about to be bad.
Tensions had been building in the neighborhood when March 6th of 2018 rolled around. And unfortunately for everyone in earshot, Danny was having a rough day. He threw back his evening shots, grabbed the rest of the liquor bottle, and walked out into his favorite room in his house, his driveway. Although it was technically outdoors, this was the place Danny felt the most safe to let his emotions out. As Danny reflected back on all the small annoyances that built up his shitty day, he began to belligerently scream out his most inner thoughts.
I just can't take it anymore!
Danny's voice expelled down the block.
Why does life have to be so annoying? Can anyone give me one good reason we're on this earth other than to shout out in rage?
Danny's screams traveled quickly across the street and in through Becky's cracked window. Although she couldn't think of any good reasons for her neighbor, she could think of many about why she deserved a peaceful and quiet evening at home. This led her to pick up her cell and dial 911.
Hello? Can someone come get my crazy drunk neighbor before this punk hurts himself?
It wasn't long before the first responders arrived in an ambulance, crossing the threshold into Danny's beloved driveway. Seeing this only frustrated Danny more, but the responders assured him that they were only there to help. They encouraged him to take a ride to go get checked out at the hospital, and Danny eventually agreed. He still had quite the buzz going and began to think that a supervised booze cruise just may lift his spirits. But Danny was quickly disappointed as the ambulance slowly took off without its siren, taking its place in line at the back of the evening traffic. The ride dragged on in slow motion as Danny tapped his fingers impatiently on the ambulance gurney.
Are we there yet?
He shouted out stubbornly without any answer given in return. When they made it to the hospital, the pace somehow moved even slower. Danny was told to take a seat in the ER waiting room, currently occupied by a man with a homemade eye patch, a woman with severe gas, and many sneezing children. Time began to tick by as the sound of the clock created a haunting beat in Danny's still inebriated brain. In between the ticks of the clock were the sounds of the ER waiting area. A repetitive choir of sneezes flooded his ears, with the bass from the gassy woman and the groans from the eye patch man intensifying in the indoor volume. After hours of painfully enduring the waiting room, Danny had reached his maximum level of impatience. He had to find a way out of there, whether it was legal or not. Danny walked out of the ER entrance and outside into the loading dock. When there, he found his ride home. Left out front and with the keys still in the ignition was an abandoned, yet welcoming, ambulance. Danny hopped in the driver's seat, looked in the back to make sure there were no injured passengers on board, and sped off back to his safe space. On March 6, 2018, in Lady Lake, Florida, a 911 call came in from a neighbor reporting 60-year-old Danny Konyenchny as acting drunk and suicidal. However, when first responders arrived at his home, Danny agreed to ride with them to the village's hospital. After their arrival, Danny went from a patient to impatient after sitting in the ER's waiting room for more than 2 hours. This is what he says led him to steal an ambulance and drive it the 5.7 miles back to his house. When police tracked down the stolen ambulance using its GPS tracker, they found it parked across the street from Danny's house and in front of his neighbors. The same neighbor that Danny suspected called 911 on him in the first place. Police later discovered Danny hiding in the trunk of his own car, later explaining to authorities that he did look in the back of the ambulance to make sure no one was in there before driving it home. Sergeant Fred Jones was quoted telling Fox 35 News,
"I've been doing this for 21 years in Lake County. I think it's the first I heard of this. You're taken to the hospital because you're drunk, and now you're in the ambulance you've just stolen to go back to your house. This could have been bad."
Danny was held without bond due to a probation violation. He was also charged with grand theft of a motor vehicle. It turns out that patience is so much more than just some silly old virtue. Possessing this quality can not only help you make new friends and find joy in life, but it even has the ability to keep you out of jail. So the next time you feel like committing a petty crime, take some deep breaths and put your patience over pettiness.
Whoa, patience over pettiness.
That's some wisdom right there.
That sounds like a really cheesy, inspirational poster that somebody would have.
Okay, now we're
in an
making
office.
it. We have to make at least an Instagram post.
Patience over pettiness.
Yeah, like one of those healing little things, you know?
I'm actually into that. Yeah, I like that.
Patience over pettiness. And then we can all remain jail-free.
Yes.
But yeah, what a wild-ass story that this one was as well.
So he was just found in his own trunk.
Yes.
That's weird.
Yep. It is a little more of a serious situation that his neighbor just called 911 and said that, you know, he was acting suicidal and stuff. So
Right.
I didn't want to make light of that, obviously, in any means at all. It never said what he was saying, and I never even really knew, how does his neighbor even know that he's being drunk and suicidal?
Yeah, it sounds like that was maybe more of just an assumption.
Yeah. And so how am I going to fit these puzzle pieces together here?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, he's going to just be venting out in his driveway because I don't know how else anyone would know any of these things.
Right.
But everything about him having a grudge with his neighbor, which I guess we both kind of had grudges in our stories.
Yes.
We also both said the word especially.
I didn't catch on to that.
You said it in one of your character quotes or about a character quote or something around there. But I'm trying to think of anything else.
I had one.
What?
Patience.
Oh.
My dude was, he was patient. Persistent was more what I was going for, but he's still very patient.
That's true.
To have played that shit out for 3 years, that's patience.
True. That is true. Patience is really something that we could all use a healthy dose of.
Yeah, that's so true.
I know I need it. Good
Whether it
God.
be with our children or ourselves.
Yes.
You never have too much patience.
Seriously, that is so damn true. I mean, can you think of someone that you're like, you know what? So-and-so is just way too patient for me.
You're right, though. I mean, unless you're thinking of a stupid example. You never have too much patience.
Exactly. And my whole thing about him having the grudge with the neighbor and parking the ambulance at their house and all of that obviously was a whole thing.
And then hiding in a trunk.
Yep. So I'm not even 100% sure it was that neighbor. There was no confirmation in any of the articles, but it probably was. I mean,
it probably was.
Another time where patience would have come in clutch. I can relate. I have been that person in the ER room
who stole an ambulance?
No. I've never taken it that far, but I've been that person that's been getting more and more impatient waiting in this waiting room.
Mm-hmm.
My instance was a little different because it had to do with my kid and I wanted her looked at.
And it
ASAP.
was like an emergency situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
For him, he kind of was like in a drunken stupor, I guess you could say.
Yeah, he should have just wrote it out.
Yeah. So I get that waiting rooms can be frustrating. But I don't think you should ever steal an ambulance to go home.
Yeah, I mean, stealing is bad.
Another thing I found fascinating is that he was called in to 911 reported as being drunk, but then why wasn't he given a DUI for driving the ambulance home?
Yeah, that's a good point, too, because they usually will kind of retroactively connect the dots and be like, well, if you did this, you had to have done that.
I know. So that was never a charge that I saw. On any of the articles, I only saw the motor vehicle...
Grand theft?
Grand theft.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all the articles just said grand theft. And I was like, well, what the hell? If he was being reported as drunk, maybe the neighbor got that part wrong. I don't know.
Now, this, I don't know anything about the legalities of it, but maybe they did try to get him for it and they had him blow when they got him and arrested him and he just didn't blow anymore. And they were like, well, the last recorded blow from him was 4 hours ago. He's been in the drunk tank for a couple hours or whatever.
That's true.
Maybe we can't prove that.
Yeah, because I was like, if this guy is stealing an ambulance and was reported as being drunk, they would try and just get him for anything they possibly could to teach him a lesson.
Yeah. Throw the book at him.
Yeah. So I was a little surprised about that, but I'm sure he got in just enough trouble with that alone.
Just enough, thank you.
So we've already talked about our connections.
Yeah, I like the patience connection. And
I know.
Yeah,
and you talked about popes. And did you know that your guy's last name was Pope too?
You know, I didn't know that until I was at the very end of my story. I'm like, oh, damn, I talked about popes earlier. Yeah, that was not intentional by any means.
Patient popes. What are you going to do? Before we sign off, I don't know the exact date that this is going to be happening, but I just want to get our listeners ready for it, for if it is happening when this episode comes out, that we finally are going to be launching merch with our new name and our new colors and everything, because the last time we had merch, our name was still Seriously Sinister.
Yeah, that is so far behind. We're almost probably a year merchless, and we've almost had this name for a year. I think we changed it in July.
It's honestly silly, but you know what? We're just the two people doing what we can, and we actually found a really cool local to our area merch company that we wanted to use, because the last time we did a merch store, it was like a really well-known like online store, and it had maybe a lot more items like mugs and hats and all these things. But Trevin and I, for this merch launch, we were really wanting to up the quality, maybe focusing more on the quality and less of the different types of merch. And working with someone local just seemed like a really cool...
Local makes me so happy.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes. Anywho, that's all to be said. We will be having sweaters and shirts coming so soon.
Yeah, boy.
I know we've finalized all the designs. Trevin and I have our own merch ordered. And we're going to be modeling for you all, taking some pics. And I can't wait for you guys to see it. There is just so much cute stuff coming. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, get ready, guys. Fill out early Christmas shopping lists and wish list or birthday. I don't know. Whatever.
We have really, really cute designs and really funny sayings and messages on them. I think you guys are just going to love it. I'm hoping. I hope that everyone's having a great week. And just remember, no matter the crime, big or small, in the end, we're all doomed.
Doomed to be petty with the impatient popes.
Bye.
See ya.
Thanks for not littering and for listening to our show. If you have another friend that doesn't litter, tell them to listen as well.
And if you grew up playing with Chat in Pitcher, Oklahoma, or have any friends that are ghosts in that town, find us on our socials at TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Live, Laugh, Larceny.
And if you have ever been an impatient patient and stole an ambulance, send us your petty crime story. livelaughlarceny@gmail.com.
And rate our patience wherever you rate podcasts. Apple, Spotify, or Good Pods. I've went 115 episodes asking for 5 stars. And you best believe I'm patient enough to go another 115.
The monks and the popes and the... Okay, here we go.
The history.
Oh, excuse me.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, brother.